Recording. You go ahead and play it.
Develop and mine the Wordnoff mine.
Turn the volume up.
We're located approximately 9 miles from Big Creek on the North Fork of Smith Creek. The view across the way is of the Elk Summit area and headwaters of Smith Creek. The Wordnoff mine was first located in the Thunder Mountain boom era in approximately 1902 by Prindle Smith. It was developed from approximately 1927 through 1934 by the Keystone Mining Company, during which time they drove about 3,400 feet of exploratory tunnel. And even though they exposed some very high-grade ore, the property was never mined. My grandfather, John Routson, was associated with this mine from the 1920s until his death in 1962. He and his sons started mining the Wordnoff in 1941, but their activities were interrupted by World War II. The Wordnoff Mining Company was formed in 1952, and although they did some further exploratory work, they, along with the others who had the property, never really mined it. In the 1970s, the property was vacant, and my father, Noel Routson, restaked it. And in 1983, after several years of exploring and prospecting the property, my sister, Letty Tucker, her husband, Jerry, my wife, Kathy, and myself decided to attempt to develop and mine the Wordnoff. We thereupon formed the Heritage Mining Company and purchased the property from my father, Noel. We submitted a plan of operations to the Forest Service in 1984, and since that time we've been engaged in mining and developing this property. It's been really great for my sister Letty and myself to be spending time here. We lived here as children during the 1930s, and at that time we were part of the wonderful community of people who lived and existed in this mountain country. I'm standing at the portal of adit number 3 that we commonly refer to as Grandpa's Tunnel. We began here drifting underground on a quartz vein, and at the present time we're stoping up on that vein in an area of high values. The vein strikes north and dips to the east, and it varies in thickness from 1.5 feet to 4 feet. It can be followed uphill for a distance of approximately 3,000 feet by the various outcroppings that surface along it. And also it was explored by the Kavanaugh Tunnel, which is up the hill about 200 feet. Massive east-west veins contact this north-south system. And at the point of contact, the veins are especially rich. The predominant rock types are quartzite and mica schist and granodiorite. Selected hand samples of our ore vary in values from 2 ounces of gold to the ton to 24. Silver values vary about 2 ounces to the ton. Cross vein sampling produces assay results of 0.87 to 1.5 ounces per ton. We're hand sorting our ore. The hanging wall in our system is fairly well defined, and the ore breaks clean from it, but on the footwall side it's highly fractured and irregular, and when we blast we pick up a lot of wall rock. So we're hand sorting to increase our values. The high grade ore includes both material that's been exposed to the water and has been oxidized, and also ore that's heavy with sulfide. We hand sort our ore up at the portal and transport it along a path up above to this bunker, where it's then picked up and hauled down to the mill by way of a pickup. You've just seen some scenes from our road that provides access from our mill to our adit. This road was built last year in 1986 after about 2.5 years of negotiations with the Forest Service. We submitted our original plan of operations to the Forest Service in February of 1984, and in that plan we told them what we wanted to do, where we wanted to do it, why we wanted to do it, and we asked at that time for a road to provide us with access to our tunnel for the sake of hauling ore and transporting mining equipment up to the adit. Well, the Forest Service sent a review team to the site in July 1987 to review our plan. This team's major purpose was in trying to determine whether or not there was sufficient mineralization on the property to warrant the amount of surface disturbance that a road building would require. The review team consisted of Jim Curtis, who was a mining geologist for the Forest Service, and Ray Wallace, who also was a geologist, Bobby Bryant, a forester, and Clem Pope, who acted as a coordinator for the team. When they came on site, they asked us to see our point of discovery. So we took them to the adit where we planned to drift. Ray Wallace went to our vein and picked up a piece of our high grade and looked at it for a few moments, tossed it aside, and said to us, "Why, this rock is barren." Jim Curtis kind of looked on and made no comment. Others in the team picked up Ray Wallace's opinion and continued with that vein of thinking that our rock was barren, that we had no values or mineralization here to warrant the building of a road. Bobby Bryant repeated several times that we had zilch and that we didn't have enough to build a road to warrant that. Also, Jim Curtis said that even if they did allow us the permission to build a road, that it would cost at least $50,000 per mile because we'd have to build it according to their standards. Also, when they were looking at our point of discovery, Ray Wallace made the comment that our vein was so small that we would probably have to have a crew of midgets working with short-handled shovels. Anyway, their whole point was that they were not going to authorize a road. So they suggested that we modify our plan of operations and request the building of a 4-foot wide path to access our tunnel. Anyway, by the end of that review day, we were so intimidated and discouraged by all of their comments that we decided to revise our plan of operations and to rather than ask for a road, to submit a request for a 4-foot wide path. So anyway, that year August went by and September went by, and we still hadn't received word from the Forest Service in regard to the assay results that they had taken at the time of the site review, nor had we been given final permission to build a 4-foot path. By September, even though we had demanded some response, it still was not forthcoming. We went to McCall to visit with Pete Walker, who was the district supervisor at that time, and we asked him if we had been caught up in wilderness politics. Even though our property isn't in the wilderness, we're about 2 miles from it, and Walker said to us that we had been caught up in those kinds of politics. Anyway, he gave us verbal permission to build our 4-foot wide path. Also, even though the Forest Service promised the assay results from their site visit, we hadn't received them. And so we went to Boise to Ray Wallace's and Jim Curtis's office, and through demanding them, we finally received their results. The assay results showed 0.87 ounces of gold per ton, which really wasn't too shabby. Anyway, in the fall, after getting verbal permission from Pete Walker, we went ahead and started the 4-foot wide path. It proved to be a total waste of time and money. It really was no access at all for what we needed access for. We were required to follow an old working trail, which was quite steep, and it took us 2 weeks to build this trail. We were working in shallow soil, rocky, steep terrain, and we wanted to use some kind of machinery to do that, and we met with Carl Whitmore in Boise and looked at a digging machine that he had, but we determined that it would cost us as much to secure that as it would to rent a cat with which to build a road. Once the road was completed after 2 weeks of intensive labor, we found that we could not transport mining equipment over it up to the adit. For instance, we couldn't haul a compressor up there. So as an alternative, we spent about $4,000 on toys with which to mine. We had to buy an electric Black & Decker masonry drill that has an 18-inch bit with which to drill, and we powered that with a 1400-watt Honda generator. We also invested money in a Honda 4-track machine in hopes that with that we could haul some ore. Also, we couldn't build this 4-foot path completely to our adit, but only within 200 feet of it, because the trail steepened at that point, and we couldn't have gotten the Honda 4-track up it anyway. So to get ore from the adit down to the path, we had to find pieces of tin with which to build a chute, which we did, and we built a little bunker. Anyway, hauling ore, we could only haul about 100 pounds at a time, and it was very hazardous and dangerous to do that. So in summary, the 4-foot wide path was a complete and total waste of time, money, and effort. Anyway, we continued our effort to secure a road. We submitted, even though we had built the 4-foot wide path, we resubmitted our plan of operations to the Forest Service, requesting again permission to build a road. In July of 1985, we were once again denied permission to build the road, even though we had responded to all of the questions that they posed of us. And in that same month, we were visited by Carol Thurman, the geologist, Joe Tague, and Bobby Bryant. And they told us that we had to provide them with further information as to the mineralization on this property to warrant the building of a road. And to do this, they would require either having Carol Thurman inspect the property, or they would accept the report of a geologist. However, they told us that they wouldn't accept a report from just any geologist, but it would have to be a geologist of their approval. Anyway, we thought about it, and we were quite hesitant in letting Carol Thurman see the property because we really felt non-trusting toward the Forest Service by this time. And also Carol Thurman was actively engaged in invalidating properties in the area. Anyway, in September of '85, we agreed to a visit and by Carol and to allow her to inspect the mine, which she did. When she did this, she peered at our vein, took no samples, and she didn't even review the property as thoroughly as Jim Curtis and Ray Wallace did the preceding year. Anyway, on her recommendation, we resubmitted our plan and asked for our road again, because she told us that on the basis of what she saw, and also on the basis of our previous site visit, that she would recommend that we be granted permission for building the road. So the road was finally approved of by the Forest Service in June of 1986, and we built it at the cost of around $1,700. What we did simply was to lease a cat and build it. One of the problems in building this road, even though it does provide us with some access, was that we had to follow that beloved 4-foot wide path, which resulted in the road being very steep and hazardous in spots. Also, on our turns, we were restricted, and on this stretch of road, we have to go up forward and then back up to the bunker, and then coming back, move forward to the corner and then back up on this stretch, which is really very hazardous. In all of their dealings with us, the Forest Service has been quite paternalistic, advising us that they know what's best for us and for our property. They have also expressed a real passion for sequential development of mining properties, but the steps that they identify in doing that are very different from the ones that we identified. When we came here in 1984, we had quit our jobs, we had sufficient money and equipment, we were ready to go to work. And by having to submit to their plans rather than our own, and build that 4-foot wide path, we feel we were set back at least 2 years in the development and mining of this property. We'll now go down to the mill and discuss the various pieces of equipment that we have and their operation and their cost. This is Jerry Tucker, my partner and brother-in-law, and he'll describe the various pieces of mill equipment that we have along with their capacity and function. Jerry?
At the last of the segment there, the rock was in the bunker, and we took the rock from the bunker down here to the landing, It's unloaded from our haul vehicle, put on the landing, then it's put into the jaw. The rock, as you see it, is in a pretty big product, so we have to put it through the jaw to go into the ball mill. It'll go in there at various sizes. It'll come out a 1/4 inch minus. It'll go from a 1/4 inch down to 1.5 thousandths. The jaw is capable of producing 1 ton per hour. Okay, now the rock comes out of the jaw, a 1/4 minus, goes into this ball mill. Ball mill then goes ahead and crushes it on down finer. It goes from a 1/4 minus down to 44 thousandths to 1.5 thousandths coming out of this screen, then goes on down into the stirring tank. This ball mill is capable of 1 ton per hour. We do not exceed over 5 tons per day right now. It can do a lot more than that. Product then goes into this stirring tank, which suspends the particulate in water. We add the chemicals and everything for wetting agents. Then it comes out of there, goes onto this table. The table, by specific gravity, sorts the material out, by the gold being the heaviest, then the quartz, then the fines. Fines end up in the pond, and the rest of the stuff is pumped back into the ball mill, and what values are collected are put here and for further processing. We take the cons from the table, we bring them up here, mix them with certain chemicals, and further reduce them down to pure material. After it reaches 1,000 Celsius, we dump it out of here into this little mold. Then from the mold, it cools. We dump the mold out. You have this glass, and hopefully the gold button is the product we're after. And that completes our chain of events to get the gold out of the rock.
This is my sister, Letty Tucker, and also my partner, and she wants to discuss the total cost of putting this operation together. Letty?
Okay, now this is our capital cost, and it's not including our labor costs. We're kind of family operating, so this is the way it starts on our equipment. I'm going to start up on the mine. Our total cost up there was $5,454, and that includes a Honda generator, Black & Decker drill, and we bought a hammer jack leg, compressor, hose, and some safety equipment, like our hats. And then on the mill, our cost was totaling at $12,067. Our jaw was $1,782, but Jerry manufactured that, so we come off a little cheaper than if we had bought one. The ball mill and the stir tank, the whiffly table, we have a water pump and a generator, and that includes everything in the mill, which was $12,067. We have a 4-track Honda that we use going up and down to the mine, and that was $2,090. Now we have some lab equipment that we have bought. We have in the future hopes of having a lab, some things that we are using now and some we'll use in the future, and that's a microscope, a small ball mill, and miscellaneous things, a gold hound, and that totaled to $1,504. Our grand total was $21,115. We have operating costs that we considered daily in our mill was $26 a day. Our mine was $19 a day. Miscellaneous costs was $15 a day, which gave us the total cost per day in operating $60.
This concludes our presentation, and in summary, we put together a 5-ton-a-day operation for a total cost of $21,000. It's been quite a challenge for all of us, and in some ways we feel as if we're living out an American dream. And it's the kind of dream that ought to be available to any citizen of this country. Mining laws exist that make it possible, and we really feel blessed and fortunate that we've had this opportunity.